welcome here to the home of the Smiling Champion and of course Ferrari's biggest fan, as we're going to go to the race reaction to the race that's never happened, and hopefully that will be the last race for the foreseeable future, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, which of course was scheduled to be the round 5 of this amazing 2026 FIA Formula 1 championship. Obviously the all-new innovative formula that didn't take place because obviously there are some serious tensions once again inflamed, just like my left part here of the chest after the big racing that we've done on this super fast, the second fastest track on the Formula 1 calendar, the Jeddah Corniche circuit. So we will be talking over here about our very own achievements in this race reaction, because there's no real Formula 1 again, sadly, due to the ongoing tensions, even though they are mostly in the Gulf, not really maybe in the Red Sea, but obviously it's affected the region, especially for example the Scarlet Red Ferraris and other formulas coming in. So it makes every sense that there won't be much racing this weekend, but don't worry, it's just 2 weeks before we will be dancing in Miami and hopefully winning with our completely upgraded new package. So for example, Lewis Hamilton was testing the wet weather tires for Pirelli. Again, that could come in pretty handy, for example, if we come to Miami or Canada, which, can well be rainy, even though, maybe rainy from a different standpoint if it's a tropical or the polar region. So we are definitely, looking forward to that. And as you can see over here, even though there was, again, no Formula 1 racing, and we are sporting this brand new fashion, we will be talking over here about how we probably should have definitely won that second Grand Prix, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Of course, it's great to collect the second podium, but yeah, we were just a little bit scared over there. One of the most controversial races, obviously, in our chase for that exclusive 5th World Championship, the Drivers' World Championship for Scuderia Ferrari, which is something only, of course, Michael Schumacher has achieved. And we will show you all of the results on the Scarlet Red Ferrari. Of course, we will take a look at how the current drivers and constructor standings looks like. And then, of course, you will still have that race introduction to Miami. And then hopefully we will be back racing, and there will be, any interruptions. Even though, of course, if this conflict in the Middle East, obviously, we haven't mentioned it, a lot, but it is true that if it keeps going, the Qatar and, of course, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, would be, a big question mark. So, maybe the season will finish in Las Vegas. Something that's unthinkable if you look at the 2D or the 3D calendar. Will probably become a reality if again the tensions do not improve, right? We had them now for over a month and a half, and it's not that far off in the future, half a year pretty much, before Formula 1 cars are due to return. So we will see what happens, but yeah, overall maybe even the Azerbaijan race potentially in Baku could have been impacted, but again they are not they are to the north, not to the south. So yeah, the Jeddah Corniche circuit, which obviously made a big fanfare and played a very important role in how the championship was decided, right, in 2021. In 2021, you could have seen, for example, the big fight, between Hamilton and Verstappen, and really, I would say drivers' favorite, or drivers really like this circuit. It is a super fast circuit, but again, a lot of the as we introduced in a hot lap, for example, a lot of the turns are really just quick. Left and right, pretty much, they are more like curves, more really straights, that you do not really need to tackle them, so instead of 27 corners, you really maybe only have 10 or 12. But yeah, definitely a lot of fun, to drive. But again, yeah, it would be interesting to see what would have happened with the battery deployment, because as you've seen, for example, in my race, especially in qualifying, it is very easy, if somebody, just is going much slower, behind some of these walls, right? Because you kind of unsighted over here. It would be very interesting, to see what would have happened. This track could potentially be dangerous, from that standpoint. But yeah, overall, I have to say, it's a pity that we are not racing here. But then again, we've never won here. So it's actually to our advantage, potentially not to be racing here. if this would turn out to be, for example, the Mercedes victory, right? Especially because we really all of the upgrades we will be bringing to Miami. So we will again see how that will go from that respect. Yeah, and other news from our race introduction up until over here for the race reaction. Yeah, I believe there are not many news sadly. The new F1 26 simulation hasn't been released yet. Of course, there are lots of some of the tweaks that will be happening. But now at least we know that after Miami we will be able, and others will be able to make some improvements in terms of the power unit. And then again, in May you only have 2 races. However, they are both sprint races, so a lot can happen there in terms of how the championship could shape up, and it will be very important for us as we will of course take a look at the driver standings to stay again within the touch of the Mercedes boys, especially the Italian boy Antonelli. It's great to hear the Italian engine, but we wanna have it played second after either the very special Monegasque or the British hymn, so that of course we know it is the Scuderia Ferrari driver winning. So yeah, overall we will never know. This is actually the only circuit on the calendar that, as things stand at the moment, they are due not to actually see the all-new 50-50 split, the ICE internal combustion engine, and of course, the electrical power. They are the only pretty much circuit that will not see the action from these, because Bahrain obviously have seen lots of testing. But yeah, we will see what the future holds. Obviously, the circuit itself is a lot of fun. I have to say, for a race, we can finish it in less than 90 minutes, and it is very fast. It's actually quite enjoyable. You could be fighting a lot over here. I think we would have probably seen a race very similar to maybe Australian race, which also was very similar, right, in this respect. In that, for example, you could have lots of the overtaking because you have lots of the long straights, which obviously you can run out of the battery. That was already issued, for example, in 2025. Because I'm playing that concurrent 2025 season, that was the only virtual racing that you've seen, and you could have seen, just how difficult it is, to recharge the battery, right? Because even when you're leading, if the people would DRS you, now obviously they will straight mode you, or simply use the overtake, use the boost, and just go past you. But then when they are behind, or when then you are behind, actually with so many opportunities, so many straights, you are always able to get back. So overall, I'm just a little bit disappointed with the way the races pan out. So maybe we can discuss what happened when I was driving the Jeddah Corniche circuit with the SF1000T N18 Formula 1 Racing Simulator. Again, you have all the exclusive reaction and everything, but yeah, it's a pity, that it pretty much came down, to the sprint, the last 15 laps. But yeah, when qualifying, obviously, for me, huge disappointment that I was not able to start on a pole position, because I've got an amazing pole position. I've really thrown the car around, for that final run in the qualifying 3. But before that, Alonso did what obviously FIA was very afraid of, that somebody could slow down significantly, right? I was a bit unsighted. Touch him a little bit, got a 5th place grid penalty, which obviously drove me to 6th, and it took a while to actually recover. But then when we were running our own strategy, obviously medium to the hard, we were producing fastest laps, and we were really catching everybody, including the eventual winner, Verstappen. Yeah, we have to say it, sadly the bad boy has managed to win, and it was only due to the red flag that we were then able to put in the medium tires, which I believe would be the fastest. But Verstappen put in the softs, which obviously at the beginning will have a bit more grip, but it will wear out after 5 to 10 laps, and he just built up the gap of 7 seconds. Obviously it took me a while to get past some of the guys on the hards like Norris that were just painfully slow, and then it was yeah, pretty much maybe too little too late. And if you are not perfect through all of the turns, that always leaves you half a second here, half a second there, and in the end we were less than 1 second behind, but actually never really had an opportunity to use the DRS. So maybe one more lap and we would have been able to tackle Verstappen. So it's a real disappointment, because when I saw that red flag, like I said, for example, in the race reaction, I was almost sure, that we were gonna win it, because actually it came at an ideal time for the medium tires. But again, the tire degradation being slow in the 2025, the season that we're playing, that gave an advantage to Verstappen. So the race, obviously the only official Saudi Arabian Grand Prix that you've seen over here this particular weekend, because of these very, very unfortunate tensions in the Middle East. Again, whoever you obviously think could resolve that crisis. The fact is, even if there is a fighting, why do you involve other countries, blocking, for example, the passages, and making everything so dangerous, when the other country is kind of innocent in a conflict, which we could say also maybe could be Saudi Arabia. So yeah, we will not be showing you obviously the real Formula 1 drivers. So here in our championship, so Verstappen managed to beat us over here, showing a blistering pace, after he obviously managed to storm into the lead on his Ferrari red tires, and I was unable to beat him, but from 6th on the grid to recover to second, and basically to have the ultimate pace to be the fastest driver. I'm just disappointed obviously that I didn't win for the second time here in Saudi Arabia. I didn't score my second successive win, but I'm sure we will be back. Yeah, and look at the gap to the third. Lando Norris, obviously, that finished 12 seconds behind for George Russell, so that's actually good for the championship, that he stayed behind Norris. 5th, Lewis Hamilton, that's maybe a bit disappointing, obviously, for Scuderia Ferrari. We would have expected him, to maybe make it onto the podium. 6th, Fernando Alonso, where are the times in the real 2026 season for him? Staying for 7th, Carlos Sainz. 8th, then was Pierre Gasly. 9th, Liam Lawson, and 10th, Esteban Ocon over here. That's how, the race finished. Once again, we didn't get the fastest lap, but we've gotten the actual pole position, and I have to say, it's quite interesting, because we had 5 Grand Prix total. I only won 2, obviously. I won the sprint, so I won half of the races, but yeah, we are always so good in qualifying, but maybe that race setup, we really should think about maybe doing maybe what Leclerc should definitely be doing, even though in F1 26 one of the big advantages is that the setup is not so much of an importance. So actually that could play into Leclerc's title chances and his aspirations, because if that's not so important, you probably know, there's a reason that he's second all time, in our history for Scuderia Ferrari in terms of the pole positions, right? And it's great, but he hasn't even won 10 races, right? I believe, Vettel Alonso have more than him, and he's been at Ferrari for obviously now is the 8th year. So it's very important over here, not to just set up the car, so that it's absolutely fantastic for qualifying, but then maybe suffers, let's say, from the tire wear or a lack of pace on a high fuel, in the race. So yeah, this is something that we definitely, have to think about. So yeah, on my official YouTube channel, definitely check out the race. All in 4K resolution over here for you for this year, and it again features basically the first lap, also the last lap, also the restart if there is, for example, a red flag. So we always try to make it better, and let us know how you like it. Yeah, and so not much racing in a real Formula 1 world, but yeah, the standing stays the same for the 2026 FIA Formula 1 Drivers' Championship. Andrea Antonelli of Italy and Mercedes leading with 72 points, George Russell being there with 63 points, and for Charles Leclerc, really 49 points. It will be important now, to get more testing, to improve, especially, I would say, the deployment, of the energy from the battery, because that's 50% of your horsepower. And that's maybe where Mercedes has the advantage, because they've done Formula E, remember, kind of maybe anticipating that this was going to come to Formula 1. Scuderia Ferrari also, will have some of the electric cars coming in. We're quite excited about it. Obviously, they sound different, but, they have such a amazing acceleration usually. So, again, the cars are absolutely mega, going in the low speed. So I think in Monaco we will already be flying, and I'll see maybe in Miami, Canada, if we are not gonna win at least the sprint, definitely from Monaco onwards, this could be a Ferrari domination, right? Exactly. So Leclerc is there, and Lewis Hamilton also, doing a very good job, in the first 3 races or 5 races, we should say, for Scuderia Ferrari, 41 points. It will be important for Lewis. Obviously, once again, not to just fight with Leclerc, but to fight with his former team, the Mercedes-Benz. Then we have fifth, Lando Norris, the reigning world champion for McLaren, 25 points. 6, Oscar Piastri, McLaren, 21 points. 7, we then have Oliver Behrman, has 17 points, ready to go racing in Miami. 8, Pierre Gasly, Alpine, 15 points. 9 is then Max Verstappen, Red Bull Racing, 12 points. Obviously, a lot of the drivers, including Verstappen, especially him, they are doing, for example, the endurance racing, the sports car racing. It's great to see, actually, just how great the Formula 1 drivers are when they join, for example, the Nürburgring 6 hours or 24-hour races. And it just shows, just how talented the drivers are. Would be interesting to see Hamilton, for example, or Leclerc have a crack at it as well. Then we have a 10th, which is Liam Lawson for Racing Bulls, 10 points. 11 is then Armin Lindbergh, the only rookie on the roster for Racing Bulls, 4 points. 12, Isaac Hadjar Racing, Red Bull Racing, 4 points. 13 is then Gabriel Bortoleto, Audi, 2 points. 14, we then have Carlos Sainz Williams, 2 points. 15, Esteban Ocon Haas, 1 point. And 16, Franco Colapinto of Alpine, 1 point. And 17, Nico Hülkenberg, Audi, 0 points. He will hope to get off the line in Miami. 18, Alexander Albon Williams, that's a surprise, 0 points. Obviously, Williams being off the pace, but the fact that Albon was actually beating, in the first part of the season quite seriously Carlos Sainz, and it seems like the situation has almost completely reversed, so that's interesting. 19 is then Valtteri Bottas, Cadillac, 0 points. 20th, Sergio Perez, Cadillac, 0 points. 21st, Fernando Alonso, Aston Martin, 0 points. And Lance Stroll, very fittingly, rounding off the table, 22nd place for Aston Martin, 0 points. So, as you can see over here, the Saudi Arabia, of course, didn't bring any changes, to the current situation, but the title fight is, well and truly over between the Scarlet Red and, of course, the silver cars. So here for the Constructors' Championship, in the 2026-2026 season, Mercedes leading with 135 points, and because there is the sprint race, which is very, very important, we are 45 points behind. If there would be no sprint race, Mercedes would have established, that lead of one race. So basically, if they wouldn't finish with both cars and we would get a 1-2, we would not be able to overtake them, but it will not be the case, obviously, during the sprint weekend. So we gotta make sure, we start outscoring Mercedes. We've beaten them, obviously, in the last proper race in Japan. And if, we can outscore them, obviously, with both cars, maybe even some other teams, but hopefully us winning, then I think, the title fight will be back on. McLaren, 46 points. Obviously the reigning champions, but again, lots of the changes, right? So during this month, I think, some of the people, like for example, Verstappen's engineers, have decided, okay, I want to go to McLaren, right? Maybe, the McLaren team boss, like Andrea Stella, I think is definitely going to come, to Scuderia Ferrari, because we gave up kind of the 2025 season. There was a Vassar's decision, and, it didn't translate into us leading the championship yet. So, Vassar's position definitely, under threat. And it would actually be great to have, somebody from Michael Schumacher's era, again, leading Scuderia Ferrari, especially when he has proven he can win like with the McLaren team. Fourth is then Haas, 18 points. Fifth, Alpine, 16 points. And only 6 Red Bull Racing, 16 points. It would be amazing if they stay there. They are pretty much back to where they used to be before the double diffuser, the 2009 era. Can you believe it? 17 years. So then 7th, the Racing Bull, 16 points. 8, Audi, 2 points. 9, Williams, 2 points. 10, Cadillac, 0 points. Ahead of dead last, Aston Martin, Honda, 11, 0 points. So, not again much to tell you, but this is how the Constructors' Championship looks like. This is how the Drivers' Championship looks like. And we hope that, we can obviously, get back to the leading ways. And this is how the race finished. I have to say over here, I'm disappointed. I was hoping it was going to be me. But you can see, this is obviously, sometimes you think, well, how about the victory or something? Well, one great thing that Formula 1 has gotten right is simply the fact that, for victory, you have quite a big spread from the second place. So, if I've just, won the race, I would have gotten plus 7 points. Obviously, the Red Bull villain would get minus 7 points. That's a 14-point difference. So, it works pretty well, right? I think the point system is one of the best they could have done. And, I would like to, use this opportunity to appeal to Formula 1, because you have the minus sprint, Canadian sprint, right? Please think about that sprint championship, because the sprint championship I'm already running it, in the season I will be sprinting in Miami again. It gives such a great additional extra dimension to the sprints, right? When you would be, for example, fighting to be the sprint champion, and it would be reminiscent of what, not just, for example, European soccer or soccer in general in lots of the countries is doing when you have the league and you have the cup, but also, for example, like NBA is doing that, right? Or also, other sports that traditionally, basically, there it would be a little bit anti-climax, the regular season, and it would be all about the playoffs. This could also help Formula One. And hey, if you really can keep 24 races or maybe just 20, why not make it, we have a 6 sprints. I think that's a good balance, or maybe the 8 sprints, in the future. But with the 6 sprints every 4 years, right, you could pretty much run at every track, and then even, put all of the results together, and give some grand prize, several millions of dollars, the special trophy, for example. There is actually so much potential, that you could do with that, because obviously, the championship itself, the more races we run, right, the more unlikely it is that it will be decided on a final race. Even though now we will only have 22 races in a season, maybe only 20, so it is definitely, going to go down to the wire, and maybe Las Vegas will once again see the champion crown there, one of our favorite tracks, for the second time. But yeah, I'm just happy that I survived over here at the Jeddah Corniche Circuit. I hope you enjoyed this special race reaction to the second and hopefully final race for the foreseeable future of the Formula One that's never happened, the 2026 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. What a pity we didn't win it, but we cannot wait to go to Miami. It's again one of our favorite tracks, and definitely very, very safe to be racing in the United States. That's the most important. So we will be there. We will be there bringing you obviously all the race introduction, but also all of the action, including the sprint action. So definitely stay tuned. And for now, you guys, enjoy the rest of the April. Again, a lot of the times the May 1st is the Labor Day or a special holiday. So, hope you guys will enjoy it. We will obviously be practicing very, very hard as we try, as we chasing history for Scuderia Ferrari. And of course, as we also have to recover, because, some of the tracks are really difficult, physically demanding. And this is how it should be at the top of the motorsport. So this was Jan, the Smiling Sun champion. And now, in our brand new, all new for 2026 fashion, let's say it with me: we love racing, we love Formula One, we love Ferrari, Forza Ferrari!